Welcome to this next session of the DoD Cloud Exchange. I'm Jason Miller. My guest today is Dave Zukowski, a principal technical consultant for public sector at Akamai. Dave, welcome to the Cloud Exchange.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us. We're going to talk cloud. We're going to talk cybersecurity. There's a lot going on, so let's jump right in. Let's talk about the current approach to cloud security. Everyone thinks of FedRAMP, the Federal Risk Authorization Management Program. There's more to cloud security than just FedRAMP. Give me a sense of what you guys are seeing. How's it evolving?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because I feel like people have a misunderstanding of what FedRAMP really is. Consider FedRAMP similar to the USDA when you go to like a meat packing plant. You know, it verifies that the processes have been followed and that what's coming out of that plant is basically consumable for humans, right? So it's the same similar approach to the cloud service offerings. Someone's done an assessment, the 3PAO teams, they've looked at all these things that are coming together and they've said, okay, this stuff is capable to run government and military workloads, but it doesn't stop there. Just like when the ingredients hit the supermarket, they don't stop there either. If you don't cook a piece of chicken appropriately, you're going to get salmonella, and that's essentially how all this works. Is FedRAMP gives you a basis to start with, and too many people have kind of grabbed onto that as the end game, and it's not. It's really the beginning of the journey. So once you get to the cloud, and you understand that you have all these ingredients, you still need the right recipes. You still need to put it together the right way. You still need to make sure you don't mix knives on vegetables and meat and make yourself sick. You still need the health department to go in there and assess that you're following the proper storage procedures and preparation procedures, which that kind of leads to the DoD ATO process. So FedRAMP's the start of the journey, but there's a much longer journey ahead there. And I think the cloud has hidden some of the activities that people have done in the past that they really still need to pay attention to and make sure they have a complete IT operations picture when they go to the cloud.
I love the analogy. We all understand this idea of buying food. You don't want to get sick. So you're just because you're buying a FedRAMP service does not say you're not going to get sick or not have a problem with hackers or some vulnerabilities. So what are the other pieces to that journey to secure cloud?
So I'll give you a funny example. So as an experiment, one of my teammates and I one day, SQL Server in the cloud is FedRAMP, right? So we just went and turned an instance on and sat back and watched. We had monitors and logs going on there. And within an hour, we saw traffic and potential penetrations coming in from China. So that's akin to just grabbing a piece of chicken and biting into it raw and hoping you don't die, right? So once you kind of understand that's the philosophy of the cloud, that all those things are there for you and they're really easy to turn on, it doesn't mean the easy thing's the right thing. So you got to make sure you're putting in the proper security groups. You've got all the right incident response in place. You've got operational monitoring. You've got password management. All that stuff still exists in the cloud. The cloud just makes it easier to operationalize a lot of that work compared to on-prem. But the on-prem processes, the on-prem activities, they don't go away. They're just different. And once people kind of get that, then it's much easier to kind of grasp the scope of the cloud. You are still running a full IT operations organization, even if you're in the cloud.
Yes, do not bite into raw chicken. We're gonna
Exactly.
just put that in the front end. Tell people
never a good idea, right?
Never a good idea.
That's our approach. Avoid the raw chicken.
There you go. One of the things that comes up, especially during the pandemic over the last year, is this concept of zero trust. It seems like a lot of agencies started to get on board, really understand why zero trust is important and how to implement it. So walk me through what are some of those pieces of zero trust. We know it's a framework, it's not a technology, but how is the process needing to change to address the zero trust principles?
You brought up the pandemic, and that's a really good corollary to kind of what we were just talking about. So zero trust is really about, I don't want to say no trust. It's about the proper establishment of trust between an end device, the network, and the enterprise resource itself. And NIST has a really good framework for it, the 800-207 special publication they did on zero trust architecture. That's kind of the key, is that it's an architecture. A lot of these agencies, a lot of these big corporations, they have a lot of the key components. It's about understanding how to take all those components and put them together in a way where you're not blindly granting implicit trust to people. And why I mentioned it's a corollary to kind of the pandemic is, think about going to a restaurant now. It used to be you could just walk in the front door, sit wherever you want, and you're good, right? Well, zero trust is, now people are getting the temperature checks. Now they're wearing masks. They're putting all this extra layer of protection. Then they go into a booth that isolates them from everybody else because everybody knows You can have all the prevention and all the mitigation you want, but somebody with that virus is probably going to sneak through, and you want the damage limited as much as possible. So zero trust kind of evolves from just those basic life principles. You want to assume the enemies in the network and never trust the network. You want to take every single enterprise resource and authenticate and validate every transaction. There is no such thing as implicit trust and zero trust. So if you ever hear somebody say, well, we're really good over here, but like, hey, our private network's super secure, so we're just going to trust that, then they don't get zero trust and walk away really fast, right? Like, bring to them what they need to understand, that it's about protecting the resources now, not the network. And that kind of breaks down that old model of, castle and moat philosophy. And the challenge we have within an organization as large as the DoD is there's so many silos of people doing that work that you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different approaches to zero trust. And once you have more than one, you don't have zero trust, because you're not getting that enterprise visibility. You're not getting that ubiquity of access. You've got pilots and efforts going on all over the place. And really what they need to look at is it's a journey. And in order to start your journey, you need to know where you're starting from. You can't get to where you want to be if you don't know where you are in the first place. So with the DoD, as large as it is, it's globally distributed. It's all the way, it's in hostile countries and hostile territories. There's networks everywhere. We have to start with that. And we have to realize that our solution has to be a global scale from day one. We can't afford point solutions like a small business in Illinois could afford, because they've only got 2 servers and 5 customers, right? That solution to zero trust won't scale to military deployment structures.
You bring up this idea of it's a journey, you got to know where to start. Do agencies, whether it's DoD or others, do they understand that they have to at least figure out what's that first piece? And for a lot of them, I would offer it's identity and access control, management, ICAM. But do they understand that there's a starting point and where that starting point is?
I think, like I said, the pockets of the DoD, there are people that get it, and there are people that are looking at specific micro sections of it. I don't know that there's a lot of people in the DoD that holistically understand everything that needs to occur. And ICAM is a great example. And that ICAM and that process change and that cultural change, breaking down those silos, ICAM's a way to do that. I'll give you an example of where it goes wrong, and it kind of helps understand where it can go right. I could have 2 systems, System A and System B, operating in what appears to be a completely secure manner. They're both using different authentication methods, secure authentication methods, mind you, not one's compromised and one isn't. But what happens is if they're both using different ones, System A gets an authentication request for Dave Zukowski coming from China. That looks completely valid. There's no reason to doubt it. System B, however, at the exact same time, gets a request for authentication from Dave Zukowski from Texas. That looks completely legitimate, and that system would allow it through. But if you take those 2 together, something's wrong, right? There's no way I can physically be in China and Texas at the same time. And when you don't approach ICAM from the enterprise and have that enterprise visibility, items like that slip through the cracks. And that's where zero trust means zero trust at the enterprise, not at the application level. Because the applications are doing great. They're doing great zero trust, right? They're authenticating, they're authorizing, they're doing all the work they think they should do. But if the enterprise isn't watching, then I might have intrusions that I wouldn't pick up.
And actually, it's a great segue, because that also brings us down the path of how automation, how things like artificial intelligence and other kind of emerging technologies can really benefit that zero trust framework, can really give you, wait a minute, if you have a piece of AI that says, wait a minute, Dave just logged in twice from 2 parts of the world, that doesn't make sense. That's where this advanced technologies can really make a difference.
Right. And that's something the cloud, again, helps us get better at. Like, it helps us have better processes in the restaurant, better meal preparation, all that stuff. That's also one area where Akamai kind of excels, and we bring, recommendations to our customers. Again, going back to that understanding where you are, the DoD is a global footprint. It's deployed everywhere. So are we, in understanding that when you do policy enforcement and you do policy inspection and decisions, you want to do that as close to the actor as possible, bad or good. The goal is to catch the terrorist in country before he ever gets back over the pond to make requests of DoD resources, or performantly answer those authentication requests to end users as close to them as possible. So when you walk into that kind of setup, you have to distribute that work, and then the cloud makes that possible to correlate all that global information, and then do what you said, put behavioral analytics on top of it to detect that, hey, it's coming from here. Or one of the things we've shown some customers are things like client reputation, where we have cross industry insights. So what looks like could be normal, just minor bad behavior on a government network is actually a more systematic misbehaving that's going on in banking, in the auto industry. It's a global attack footprint. We can take all that higher level planetary information and apply it to individual customers. So that's where we kind of get security at scale, where you want to pay attention not only to what's going on right in front of you, but as far in that forest as you can get to.
Dave, we're just about out of time for this session, so I've really learned a lot. But what's the one big takeaway for agencies, for DoD, when it comes to cloud security?
Don't eat raw chicken.
Don't eat raw chicken.
Listen to each other, right? Understand that it takes the enterprise and it takes collaboration to get there, and that it is a journey. You probably already have all the key components you need. You might need a few product gaps to fill it in, but if somebody tries to sell you zero trust in a box, it doesn't exist. It's an architecture, it's a journey. Find people that will take it together with you.
Very good. This has been a fascinating conversation. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this session. Let me thank my guest. Dave Zukowski is the Principal Technical Consultant for Public Sector at Akamai. Dave, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
I'm Jason Miller. Now let's rejoin the studio for a few closing remarks to wrap up this day of the DoD Cloud Exchange on Federal News Network.